Sam, I would love to learn a little bit more like why you even got started with the entrepreneurial journey. Like if you go back to Sam in New Zealand, like why did you even get started with your entrepreneurial journey and what was it that got you started?
Yeah, so I got my first job, like an internship at Vodafone, like a telecommunications company. I'd done business at university, and I thought I'll do a degree in business, I'll get a corporate job, and I'll like go up the corporate ladder. But I got there and it just sucked. Like, corporate stuff is mostly just bullshit, like keynotes and meetings and just complete waste. And I hated that. And it was very political. And then I remember my girlfriend at the time, her best friend, we got invited to their beach house, which turned out to be a private island. And I went there and I was like, oh my God, it had a helicopter and a golf course and it was a private island. And I was like, what is this? And I was like, what does this guy do? And they said, oh, he's an entrepreneur. And that was the first time I'd ever actually met an entrepreneur, honestly. The only people I'd known growing up were just regular blue collar people. Like my dad's a builder and my mum was a teacher. And I thought successful people were maybe accountants or doctors, right? Or lawyers, maybe. People with BMWs and like a suit. I'd never met an entrepreneur. And it wasn't just the island and stuff. It was just the guy too. He was super like interesting. And it seemed like he was quite happy. And he was like, it interested me. So after that trip, I came back and then I was in my corporate job doing bullshit again. And I was like, I need to learn more about this entrepreneurship thing. And so I started reading about it on the internet, watching interviews. And I was like, I could actually get into this because I've always had hobbies and interests and I've always been quite obsessive. So, let's say if I got into computers, I wanted to build computers. I wanted to overclock them. I wanted to make a water cooled computer. I went hard. I found the forums, I found the people, and I wanted to do it to the extreme. And then, Counter-Strike, same thing. I went through the same process. And then I did rock climbing. I did car racing where I built engines and tried to get the most.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so I could build a full engine and I know how an entire race car works. Like I could assemble the entire thing by memory. And so I met those people and I found those forums. And so turns out I'd already been doing this stuff. It just never made me any money. I always just thought it was a distraction because, my teachers would say, why are you like drawing race cars and why are you not doing your homework instead of like, why are you building engines instead of doing your homework? Or why are you building computers or playing Counter-Strike instead of doing your schoolwork, right? So I always thought that I was like an idiot that was just distracted by these things that were just very interesting to me. And I guess it's because they never made any money. They just costed money and distracted me from regular things, which is why I thought that. But when I really dug into entrepreneurship, it seemed like it was a way that those people could make money. So like the skills I had learned, how to like figure something out, how to like make something high performance, how to take on a project and complete it and, create a budget, buy the parts, put them all together. Like I had been doing these things my whole life and I just never saw it in that kind of frame. But when I started to like listen to entrepreneurs, it sounded very like familiar to me. And so I saw a business as just like building a computer or a race car or something and succeeding as achieving a certain time or a certain level of performance, right? And there's people out there that had figured things out. Like if you went on the internet and searched through forums and things, you could figure out like what CPU, what motherboard, like, you know, who's figured out the different parts, and you could kind of put them all together, and you could find the different people that could help you, and you could achieve if you tried hard enough, you could like succeed. And that's why I really fell in love with entrepreneurship. So I quit my corporate job and just decided I'm going to do this full time, and was living in my parents' garage. So I didn't have any costs, and I just was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work, but I'll figure it out. It's so much better than this other thing I'm doing. Yeah.
So, and I can imagine as well in the beginning, right, when you started, that you just wanted to make money, right? But how did you go from like just making money and like replacing your job with making money to actually making money doing something that you're like truly passionate about? How did you go about doing that?
I've always been can't do something if I'm not passionate about it, by the way. So entrepreneurship to me was never just about money. It was probably more about passion. Which is why my first few businesses didn't really work, because I was just really interested in building that app or like making that thing. Then once I built it, I realized, oh shit, it needs to make money, and it couldn't. So I was like, okay, well, we have to try something else. But then I realized after my first few failed attempts that it had to make money, right? So I had to balance these things, like what am I passionate about, but it also has to make money. So I really came at it from the angle of passion initially, and only added money as a secondary thing because it was necessary. But I've turned down money all the time to just follow things that I'm passionate about. Like, yeah, that's the following my interest has always been number one.
What was the first business that you started that you were actually like really, really passionate about? Was it consulting, or would you say school is, or was it anything before that that you found like in love with as well to kind of build in terms of business?
Yeah, well, all of them really, like, because, you know, you don't get the motivation to build something unless you're passionate about it, right? I mean, I started off making apps. So the very first thing I made was, do you remember in cafes how they used to have loyalty cards, like, and they'd stamp the card? I was like looking for app ideas because this is like 2008. Apps are like hot, right? And everyone's trying to make an app for everything. And so I go to a cafe and I'm like, oh, I can turn this cafe's coffee card into an app. And so I did the design for the interface and stuff. And then I started cold calling cafes, and I was trying to pitch them this idea for this app. And that was like my first one. And then I did a bunch of things, like honestly, like at least 10 things before I found something that really worked. And yeah, I was
how
really
old were you, by the way, during, sorry to interrupt, but like when you started all this, like how old were you?
22.
No?
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing. Seriously, like I went to some dude's island. I was Googling what an entrepreneur was. Everyone was making apps. I was like going around thinking, what can I turn into an app? Like, this is some real basic shit that fully didn't work. And I, you know, spent at least a year just screwing around like this because I had no idea what I was doing, because I didn't even know an entrepreneur, you got to remember. I'd never met one. It wasn't until I started to find like online resources and watch entrepreneurs interviews. So like this resource I found was called mixergy.com. Have you heard of it?
Yes. I haven't
This
spent too
guy
much
was
time on it,
doing,
that one.
yeah, this guy was doing like podcasts before they were even called podcasts. He would interview successful entrepreneurs. One of the first ones I watched was Drew Houston, like the founder of Dropbox. And I'd used Dropbox and I thought it was pretty cool. So listening to his story was really cool. And I was like, oh my God, these people are so smart. I was like, no wonder I'm failing, because what I'm doing is so stupid. So then I got hooked on that, and I would just watch all of these entrepreneur interviews on Mixergy.com. This is before, like, no one was interviewing entrepreneurs at this time. You got to remember. I sound like an old man because, like, now there's too much fucking entrepreneur interviews on the internet, but back then there was none. And I watched all of them, and then I started to learn. And eventually one guy said that I listened to his interview. His name was Dane Maxwell. And he said, I'm going to make a course where I'm going to show entrepreneurs how to start their own SaaS company, software company. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is what I need. Someone who's done it, who can teach me how to do it. And so I enrolled in that course. It was my first ever course. And I never achieved any actual success until I joined that course. And what he showed us was the problem everyone has is they just come up with ideas, right? And that's what I was doing. Like I went to a cafe, I was like, I'm going to turn this card into an app. Like just because you can have an idea doesn't mean it's good to pursue as a business. He said, because my problem was always people would say this is cool, but I don't need it. Like I'd cold call these cafes, and they were like, my paper card is fine. I don't need some fucking app, right? Like, and they were right. They shouldn't have turned that into an app. So that was always my problem. I could come up with cool ideas, but no one would be interested in paying for them. So this guy said, instead of coming up with ideas, look for problems. Because people that have problems are in pain, they're real, and they're willing to pay money to solve them. And it comes from the customer instead of from you. And that's very important, right? Because that's how you know there's a need or a demand for this thing you're considering making. And that was a breakthrough for me. That was basically the only thing I needed to hear. There was more, but that was the big breakthrough. And so I changed my approach. Instead of just coming up with ideas, I started talking to business owners. I picked an industry. I picked property management, right? Because I was looking for an industry that was like a sunrise industry. So it was growing and it was getting more successful, because I didn't want to target an industry that was dying. And I could tell if an industry was growing or dying based on, I went to a job board and I looked at how many job postings were in each industry. And an industry that's hiring a lot is growing a lot, right? And so property management was number one. And so I picked that industry and I started just emailing and calling property managers. And I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to learn about the most painful parts about being a property manager. And I was amazed how many people would actually talk to me, like CEOs of legit companies. They'd get on the phone. Some of them met me for coffee because I was curious about them, right? It's different. I wasn't trying to sell them some app. And they would tell me everything. It was honestly amazing. They would talk to me for hours, tell me everything. And after I had about 10 conversations, the patterns emerged. There was one clear problem everyone had, and it was property inspections. They all hated them. They were doing them with a digital camera and a paper form and a clipboard, going back to the office, putting it into Word. So they had to upload the images, format them, transcribe their paper notes into Word, turn it into a PDF and attach it to an email and send it to the owner. And they managed on average 120 properties each, and they had to inspect them 4 times a year, right? So what's that? That's like 480 times of that, what I just explained. It's terrible. And then I immediately thought I can make an app for that, right? Because I was just looking to make an app for something. The problem I had was that the things I was making an app for weren't problems that people were willing to pay money for. Do you see the difference?
Mm.
Yeah. So then I made an app for that and it was successful and we grew. Like the company still exists today, by the way. It's called snapinspect.com. I sold my shares to my co-founder because I wanted to go into the course industry. But the company still exists. It's used by a lot of the top property management companies. Yeah. But that was my
Interesting.
first ever success was after I joined a course. This is where the story gets interesting because through that experience, I fell in love with the online entrepreneur course world. The experience of going through that and then going from being a dumbass to actually like achieving something successful and meeting friends, right? I was like, this is so awesome. And I was failing so hard without this. So like, I just loved that industry. I did not love property management. I chose it because it was growing. That's not a strong enough reason to want to like put your life into something, right? So I sold my shares in the property management, property inspection or Snap Inspect, and I went all into courses and made my first course. And that's when I transitioned from like apps and software to courses. And then, it's funny because I've always had a love for software. It was actually my first love, right? But I couldn't find an industry that I loved to apply it to, like property management. Then I fell in love with the world of online courses and training. So I went in there and now it's come full circle and now I'm making software for that industry. So it's like it was meant to be.
Cool. Like, would you say that lesson that you got when you built Snap Inspect of talking with customers and finding problems, would you say that that was like the biggest kind of, lack of a better word, like secret to get something to work? And are you still using that a lot today when you're building a school?
Yes.
And if so, how are you using it?
I use it every day. So, sometimes I just sit down and I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, how am I going to make this feature? So, it goes much deeper than just like what company should I start or what major problem should I solve? It's like down to every detail. So I'm looking at this feature, our affiliates feature, for example. I was looking at it yesterday. And there was too many possible things I could do. I was like, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. Like there was 20 things. And I was like, if I do all 20 of these things, I'm going to like overcook it. Like it's like probably only a small percentage of the things are actually necessary. But it's impossible for me to make that decision. Because I'm like just trying to make something better instead of trying to solve a problem. Do you see the difference? So then I'm like, all right, screw this. I'm going to talk to the user one of our top affiliates. So I get on the phone with Doug Borton. You know that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's crushing it.
Yeah. I sent him a Zoom link and I was like, and then he responded. He was on the Zoom call within 4 minutes. So that's how fast it is when you talk to a customer, by the way. Whereas I probably spent 4 hours staring at the screen worrying. Immediately I'm like, yeah, what problem do you have with this? And he tells me, he's like, I just need the email address. And I'm like, okay, so what if I did this? And he's like, yeah, that would work. I'm like, do you need anything else? No. Okay. Right. So you need that other side. You're like, the thing I've learned is you're making something for someone, right? And you're not them. So it's very important that you're constantly balancing yourself with this other person that you're making things for. And then always try to like narrow the array of ideas and conversation to what is the problem. And then you just solve the problem. And if you just continue to solve problems, you will make something great. I also found that this living species that lasts the longest, like it has the most longevity. It's like this turtle with blue blood, by the way. What's fascinating about it is that its DNA has something in it that doesn't form new mutations. It doesn't try to replicate really fast or form new mutations. All it tries to do is repair errors. So, and it's the things that mutate and replicate really fast and rapidly have the shortest lifespans, and the things,
Interesting.
yeah, and the things that just focus on fixing errors are live the longest. This is in like biology. So whenever I can find a nice like correlation like that too, it gives me more confidence that I've found some deeper truth. And do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because when you build school as well, right? You're not implementing everything right away, and I'm sure you're getting a bunch of requests from people of new stuff that people want. But it feels like you're very careful about what the next thing is going to be that you implement to school. And I think I get the feeling that you say no to a lot of this as well, because you want to guard people from, I don't know, maybe getting too many options or too much stuff on the platform. Is that kind of what you're saying as well with the DNA, that you're just trying to like fix the most essential thing first and not add on too much stuff too fast? Is that correct, would you say? Or
Yeah, well, you've got the resource that I'm managing at school is like time and money, and it's like engineers' time and money to pay for engineers and stuff, right? Very limited resource. And it takes resources to make something, and we add it, right? And so how I allocate those resources is basically my job. That's basically, what should I say yes to, what should I say no to, how should I prioritize things and sequence them. It's what most of what my job is. But the problem with making something is that it's very hard to take it away, right? So once you add something, and then if people all adopt it, like imagine if we tried to remove classroom, right? Like we'd probably get sued. Yeah. So once you add, like, people will often not let you take it back, and you only have limited resources. So if you do one thing, it means you're not doing something else, right? There's opportunity cost there. And the more things you add, the more complicated it gets. And with complexity comes more. Every time you add something else, it makes it harder to add something else, by the way. So the more stuff you add, the harder it is to add each new thing, because you have to think of how this one thing touches all of these other things. So, and then the more things you add, the harder it is to maintain, because, there's bugs and all of that. And then the harder it is for a new user to learn, right? So it's not as intuitive and all of this. So there's a real cost to adding. That's what it's really about. Adding should be avoided at all costs. And if you're going to add, it better be worth it, right? So that's why I spend a lot of my time on that.
And if we just I'm very interested to hear about some of the downturns as well, like from going from this very successful company that you had, consulting.com, basically selling that company, going all in, like this infamous thumbnail, like going all in with the poker chips, like into school. Like, what was some of the hardest things that you went through when you started school? And how did you overcome those things?
Yeah. The hardest one would be finding a co-founder, for sure. If you're going to make something like school, it's not a normal software company. It's bloody hard. So you need exceptional engineering talent. Like, we're talking like, the best of the best. And everyone wants those people. Like, we're competing with, every one of the most successful companies in the world for these people, right? So finding my co-founder and then finding our engineering talent, that was, especially when you're small and your idea isn't proven, right? And you're not making any money. Yeah, that's the hardest part, for sure.
Yeah, I know that you've talked about that before, but it was a long process of finding that person as well. It took like a year to find this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, where do you see school going? Because just like 6 months ago, I thought that I knew what school is what it was going to become. I was like, school is going to become huge. And then in January this year, when it really started to blow up, I'm like, I start to see this entire new dimension of what school can become. And that was like a click in my brain. Like, Sam has seen this a long time ago, what school can become. But I'm very interested now to learn, like, what do you see school, like the ultimate version of school, kind of what does that look like, and what impact does it have on the world, I guess?
Well, instead of explaining what, it's more like how it would work, right? So we wanted to build something that 1 billion people use. So some real core utility for like people. Like the products I've fallen in love with is like Google search and like even Google Maps and YouTube and Google Docs. You could also say like Chrome or a MacBook Pro or an iPhone. Like these are like core utilities that add so much value to so many people every day, right? I wanted to make something like that. And I think that people need to learn different skills to go through their life, right? And I think that the way to do that is to find the community of people. I think you learn more by finding a group of people than you do by looking at content. Yeah, for sure. Because that's how I learned everything growing up. And that's how I even achieved my first success in business. And so how do you do that on the internet right now? Well, you can't. You search on Google and you find like just a ton of bullshit, like ChatGPT generated articles, like, so it's really hard actually. There's more information than ever on the internet, but yet everyone's still so confused. And so that's one side of it, a place where people can discover their people and solve their problems and find their path in life and achieve their goals. They can basically use it like a library or a search engine of communities and people and things. And then on the other side of it is the creators side. I think that a lot of people now want to make money online doing what they love, right? Like these days, everyone wants to make money online doing what they love. And it's quite hard to do that actually. If you look at all of the different tools you need to like hack together, all of these different skills you need to have, I can see why it's not adopted by more people. And I can see why a lot of the people that do it get burnt out, right? So I wanted to make a platform kind of like Airbnb where if you had a passion for something, you could come onto the platform and you could just create your thing there, and then you could run it there and make money doing that, right? It was just simple and seamless. You didn't need anything else to do it. And then if we made it that simple and easy, then a lot more people would do it and it would be a lot more enjoyable to do. And then that's how we kind of balance these two sides. Like we're helping a lot of people make a full-time income doing what they love on school by building communities. And then on the other side, we're helping just anyone discover their community and like achieve their goals or solve whatever problem they have in their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And at the scale of like 1 billion users. So we will do whatever we need to do to make that happen, basically.
Gotcha. And then on like a more personal level, like what is it why do you want to do this entrepreneur, like building things? Like you kind of found out about this entrepreneurial thing, you built that app, and then from that you've been successful with a lot of things that you've done since that app. So like you've gone all in on your business ventures, like literally all in. Like why do you do that? Like what is it that drives you to like continuously want to like build stuff and do it on such a high level?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I would save all of my money and do all of these jobs, right? Like dishwashing jobs and milk runs and things, shitty jobs. And I'd save all of my money just so that I could buy like different parts for whatever project I was working on. So if it was my computer, I had this vision in my mind of this, like I was going to achieve like 3.6 gigahertz on this computer, right?
Yeah.
And I was imagining like the FPS on Counter-Strike and the ping, and I could see it in my head. And then I figured out what I needed, like what parts I needed, how much they cost and everything. And then I was like, okay, well, this is how much money I need. I can earn this much an hour. All right, I need to work this hard. I could buy it at this point. So I was like spending all of my time thinking about this, researching it, drawing pictures of it in school, and then working to earn the money to spend it on this. I wasn't even making any money building this project. It was actually costing me a lot of money, and I was grinding just because I could see this vision in my head, and I wanted to make it come to life. Same thing happened with race cars. Same thing happened with everything, right? I was doing projects and trying to generate money so I could build the project and having a vision for a project my whole life. And I found it very enjoyable. That's just what business is to me now. The only reason I want to make more money is so that we can build cooler stuff. You know, the one thing in my childhood that would always be the limiter of my projects and my ambition was budget. Right? Like I couldn't make my project bigger or better because I was earning like $12 an hour at my job and I had to go to school. Right? So in business, the fact that you can generate money and then pour that back into the project and then hire people to help you with the project, it means that the scale and ambition of your projects can be much bigger. And so that's how I see business. I guess it's very different than a lot of other people, where they're just trying to make money to take it out and then buy like some stuff with, right? But I just want to build cool stuff. And you need money to do that. You can't ignore the money side because you need to hire smart people and they're expensive. And yeah.
So at the end of the day, like business is like the ultimate like challenge for you to like put this almost like obsessive, like you're truly like obsessive about the thing that you're working. You find something that you're very passionate about, and then it's just like all in on that thing. And then business becomes like the most challenging thing that you can kind of take on, I guess, to like keep that forever going. You can't really like meet that goal of like achieving the goal, I guess. Would that be accurate? Like it's just an outlet for you to like
very big. Because, you know, instead of achieving 3.4 gigahertz, which is very achievable, I picked 1 billion users. I think there's only 4 or 5 things that have even done that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Do you think you're going to reach it?
Well, it's the goal, but if I said yes, I would have no like actual facts or evidence. So I wouldn't be comfortable saying yes, but I want to and that's what I'm trying to do, but I don't know. That's the beauty of something ambitious, right? Like anyone trying to do something truly ambitious, they don't really know if they can do it or not. That's part of the fun.
So for somebody then who is like listening to this right now and they see how much school is growing and they see the potential in school, and they've now listened to your story and of how you found the thing that you were passionate about and actually making that work, like, what would you advise to people to, first of all, like you said that you learned a lot by listening to other people's stories, but what would you advise to people to get something to work on school? Do they start with a passion, or like how do they go about making a school community profitable?
Yeah. So profitable is like a big jump, right? I mean, I think it's important to, like sometimes there's many different ways to make something work, by the way. So I don't want to say something as if it's the only way to make something work. So I guess it's better framed as like what I would do if I was going to start it all over again, because then it's just my opinion. You know what I mean? So honestly, I would just take the pressure off myself by having a job of some kind. So, what's fascinating to me is that a lot of online entrepreneurs that are successful, they're always looking to hire people and pay them pretty well, right? Like I would just get a job working for one of those people, because at least then I would be able to pay my bills, save some money, and get some insight into what it takes to make a company that's successful, and what a successful entrepreneur looks like. Like that, even if you like, that's going to be very helpful anyway, right? And now you've taken the pressure off yourself, so that you can look into things and the time isn't ticking. Like I see some people, they're like, I need to make my business successful in like 14 days. And I don't even know what my niche is. I'm like, dude, it's not going to work. Like,
Yeah.
forget it. You can't do shit in 14 days. So yeah, I would take that pressure off, and then I would start to think like, what zone do I want to focus on? And I would just focus on a zone that exists. Like there has to be, I think the beauty of finding the people or the kind of niche that you want to serve is that you find out that the market really exists first, instead of like making something and then searching for the market, right? Which is the classic mistake a lot of people make. So by finding the market first, at least you know that that market exists. So find the people. Like you can go to events or conferences, you can find the influencers in that space, you can find the websites, the newsletters, whatever kind of pieces of content and people and communities and events are kind of tying together some space, right? I think a lot of people get tripped up here in thinking of traditional industries. That's not helpful. Like, don't think of like marketing or insurance. There's only like 12 of those anyway, and they're not helpful. Like, where are the marketing people? How can I talk to a marketing person? It's not helpful. But if you were like into like sports betting, for example, or if you were into like merch or drop shipping, or if you were into like paid advertising or just online marketing, at least you could go to like the ClickFunnels conference and things. You can meet the people and you can kind of get a feel for the space and think, is this something that I would be passionate about like working in? Because you're going to be picking the space that you're in is crucial, because you're going to be thinking about those people in that space every day. You're going to be talking to them all the time. So find that first, right? And I can guarantee you that there's always many problems in every space that people are willing to pay money for. That's a given. So you don't need to worry about like, oh, but will there be something I can build a business around in this space? Of course there is. The place where everyone goes wrong is they don't find the market. Then once you find the market, you can find the problems. See, the problem I kind of had with Snap Inspect, my first app, was that, or wasn't my first one, my first successful app, was that I found the market, it existed. I found a problem, it existed. I made a solution, it worked. It's still successful. But I never liked the market. So my motivation didn't last for long. Do you see what I mean? Then
Yeah.
I found this other market that I did love, and that has been burning for a long time, that like fire, and it doesn't go away. And that's really the secret to it, is knowing the space that you're in, and being passionate about it. And then, yeah, find the problems. You can figure things out pretty quickly. Maybe it's a service people need initially. Like maybe you're helping people with thumbnails or video editing or like, I don't know, sales or appointment setting, copywriting, whatever. Just maybe you start with a service, and I wouldn't worry too much about like, will the thing you start with, will you be stuck with it forever? I don't think so. Like, I think that the market you're kind of stuck with forever if you're doing it right. But what you do for that market doesn't really matter. That can evolve and change over time, right? So just get started somehow, and then you can build from there, right? Because that way everything you're doing is you're just learning more about the market, you're building more of a reputation in the market. Do you see what I mean? And it compounds. It compounds a lot over time. And so, these are just general ways I would think about getting into it. And then once you've like found the space you're interested in and you've found a problem, that is when you can start getting people into a community, really. Like if you're passionate about, I don't know, dog training, and you see that maybe dog trainers have a problem getting clients or whatever, or running their business. So you make it for them. And now at least you know those two things, like what is the market and what part of being in this market is this community about. Then you can bring people together. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. We talked about this yesterday. Like we found this goat community on school, and this woman making like $5,000 per month from having a community about goats, which is pretty amazing. But in the beginning, like finding out a market and like what you're passionate about? Do you think it's more important in the beginning just to find a market where you can be profitable and kind of sacrifice a little bit on like the passion side of things, or do you think like should you find a market that you're passionate about?
Well, look, you see what I mean? Someone found goats and is profitable.
Yeah,
it's got nothing. Being profitable is more a function of your passion than like, can this market be profitable? Right? Because the truth is, if you're really passionate about a market, you can make it. Like you can expand the market. Like look what Michael Jordan did for basketball. It was tiny before Michael Jordan played basketball.
Yeah.
He made basketball big. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this happens all the time, by the way. Like, the passion is really what drives most of the success. There needs to be something there. Like when Michael Jordan started playing basketball, people were playing basketball and people liked watching basketball. So like, it wasn't like he just made some like loop in his backyard and started throwing a stick through it and trying to make that successful, right? He started with something that was already there and then expanded it. And so, this woman with goats, it's working for her. And I've seen this like over and over again. Like the most important thing with online business is really like differentiation. And when weird seems to work, like weird wins on the internet. So and really the main differentiator I've found with things is like the passion of the person doing it. And so if you follow your passion, you're probably going to find something unique. You're going to have natural differentiation. And
Yeah.
it'll probably work. But I think where everyone goes wrong with this is that maybe they need to make money immediately in 30 days, right? So they take the thing that's not their passion, that maybe is just easy to get a client or two. And so they get some money, but now they hate it. And that's why I said like a job, which is kind of like a lot of entrepreneur people might be like, what? I honestly think it's better to have a job than to start a business that you hate. Because at least then you can have a job and then like figure out the business that you wouldn't hate. I see more entrepreneurs with like businesses they hate than like businesses I think it's the main problem with entrepreneurs. They maybe the reasons they chose their thing aren't pure enough, but they kind of feel stuck in it.
Yeah. You do something because you see other people do it successfully, and then you do it because
and
they
then
make
once
money.
you're making 10 grand a month, you're like, oh, but what if this other thing doesn't work? So so you're building websites for people instead of talking about goats. But you got
Which is awesome about school, right? Which is like, it's the first thing online right now where you can actually monetize your passion, actually make something that makes money from doing something that you're truly passionate about. I don't really see how you could, like, how would you otherwise like monetize a goat community?
I don't know
like,
what
it didn't really exist.
Goats, by the way, like, do you?
I think she's like teaching people how to like take care of your goats, or maybe I don't know, their fur or stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
No.
That's also the interesting thing about picking something you're passionate about, is somehow like the world acts in weird ways. Like the world changes, right? And so I know that a new trend is like homesteading, or having your own garden and growing your own vegetables, or having chickens and goats. So like, that market is growing rapidly. I know people that have trainings on like how to have chickens. Their stuff is blowing up. I also know homeschooling is blowing up. Like there's a lot of groups on school about homeschooling, and it's trending hard. And so, the world's always changing. And that's the beauty of picking something that you're truly passionate about and sticking with it, because a lot of the time I've found that things tilt in your favor, and you're just like, you're in this place and you've already been there forever, and it's just everything starts taking off. Whereas a lot of the people that are chasing trends, by the time they get established, it's gone. So they're on to the next one. Do you know what I mean? Like NFT, crypto, this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that it's a bad place, but the people that are really benefiting from it are the people that loved crypto before it was cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you've got to just pick something because you're passionate about it and you believe in it, and stick with it, because what you're really picking is the market, not the thing you're selling. Right? And you've got to believe that there will always be opportunity in this market. What you're selling right now might not be what you're selling in the future, but you believe in the market. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I've had for this info space for a long time now. I was selling courses, I was selling masterminds, and then it moved to software. But it's interesting to me, because some people I've noticed some people say, "Oh, Sam isn't doing info anymore, he's doing software, so the opportunity is software." And I'm like, no, if info sucked, school would be dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm only doing school because I believe so much in this market. I don't believe that much in software for the sake of software. I think software is not the main thing. The main thing is what people are making with it, right? And I believe in that.
Awesome. As a final question then, like if somebody want to start with school, and like how do you like what do you think is the best place to learn school inside of the school games? Like if you have a bunch of people there who are like succeeding, like they're doing the interviews. You mentioned earlier in the interview that you like to listen to interviews as well. Like how can you leverage the school games to its full potential? And like,
Yeah, I was thinking
because
about
it's an immense resource. Yeah.
I was thinking about this. So like I would sign up for school because I think it's really valuable, just really like $99 a month, and you get the software, but you also get the games, which gives you all of this training, right? Like 1 day a week, 1 day a month of mastermind recordings with Hormozy, and then pretty much like 2 to 3 interviews with successful people a week. And so sign up for it and start listening to the interviews. You don't have to listen to all of them. Just follow your interest and your curiosity. If something's telling you, oh, you should watch this one, try it. But if you're 10 minutes in and you don't like it, just don't watch the rest. Like there's some intelligence to that, by the way. You don't have to watch everything, and you do not have to watch the whole of everything. Just follow your instincts and your passion, and you will start to like piece things together, like patterns. And then I would join some communities. So like your one is perfect. You want to everyone that's made a good video game, first of all, was a like hardcore player of another one, right? Everyone that's made an app, first of all, was inspired by using apps. So being a user of something is the key to being a great creator of something. Like I'm pretty sure Mr. Beast was PewDiePie's biggest fan. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He was cheering for him the hardest when he wasn't the winner. So you see how that works? So experience being a member in the school games, experience being a member in your community, and just take in and try to develop a taste for like what makes a good community on school, what makes for a good experience. And you're developing taste there. Now, and you're listening to winners' stories, and you're listening to the 1-day recordings, and you've got your own training and your thing that's teaching how to do it. And so you're learning, and at the same time you're trying to like explore your like, what is my space? What market am I going to be in? Once you kind of find that, you're going to be able to apply all of these patterns that you learned from everything to this market, right? So when you build your community, it might follow some patterns that you learned from Max Premium, maybe some from the school games one. Like, for example, maybe you do interviews with people in the space and you release them in there, right? And maybe the categories you have in your community are similar. It's a blend of what you learn from Max Premium and what you learn from school games. This is how you do it. And that way you're not just like trying to make a clone of Max Premium, which is a dumb idea, which won't work. And even if it does, you will not do it for very long because it's not like, it has no special meaning to you. So plus it won't be differentiated by definition because you literally just copied it. Do you know what I mean? So like it's missing all of the vital ingredients for any form of success. So you need that's what I would do. And I think you can do all of that for $99 a month. Oh, and that reminds me of one other thing. I would, not feel bad about spending $99 a month, I would go through your bank statements and try to save $99 a month. It's all about removing the pressure, right? Like it's way easier to save $99 a month than it is to make an extra $99 a month, by the way. A buck saved is a buck earned. It's the same, right? So I would look. I'm sure everyone can find a way to cut $99 a month out of their budget pretty easy. And now you don't think that you're wasting $99 a month, and then you're learning, and it will come. And just give it some time too. Not everything is to happen so rapidly. You should be showing up daily and doing things, but like your success doesn't have to be really fast. I think that's a lot of the reason why people fail in business is because they expect something to work immediately and it doesn't, so they quit. Right? Whereas I didn't make any money in my first year, like a whole 1 year. I made $0. But I learned so many things, and that eventually led to like where I am now. And so just don't judge yourself on the actual, like, am I making money or am I profitable? Judge it more on like, am I making progress? Like if something doesn't work and you figure out why it didn't work, then I don't care about the fact that I failed. Because I know why I failed. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. So like the more times you complete that, you're getting closer and closer to it. And yeah, there's this quote from Bill Gates. I remember it was like, most people grossly overestimate what they will achieve in 1 year, but grossly underestimate what they will achieve in 10. And that's definitely true. Like I achieved like nothing in 1 year, but in 10, I didn't think I'd get this far. Yeah.
Awesome.
And this is probably very counterintuitive to what a lot of people are saying on the internet. Is it? I don't know because I'm not even watching it, but is this advice quite different?
I think it's just the overall feeling people get when you just watch other people. And then it's very refreshing to listen to people who have actually come far. And all of them, like you say as well, like it takes time. And if you just browse around yourself on the internet, you get this false misconception that everybody's just making money so fast. But they're really not.
Yeah. When you do, it comes on fast. Like I was making no money, and then I swear within a month I was making 10 grand a month. So like when it works, it works. And then before long, I had made like 300 grand. Yeah, I went from like $0 in my first year to making 300 grand in my second.
Yeah.
So it comes when it works, it works. And it comes on fast. And then when you share that, it looks like you came out of nowhere, right? I guess it might be kind of how school looks right now. It's like, oh, school, it just blew up overnight. But man, I've been grinding on this thing for 5 years.
Yeah, that's insane, actually.
5 years. Yeah. So that's why you need to be passionate and give it time and take the pressure off. You know, to start school, like I cut a lot of expenses. Like I figured out how I could personally live on like a 250 grand a year salary, which might sound kind of ridiculous to a lot of people. But with a family and in California, still quite hard. But I figured out how I could do that. And then I was like, okay, I had to cut a lot of costs, right? Like my wife wanted to fix our roof because it had a leak. I was like, no.
That's pretty badass.
That's what I told her, because I spent all of my money on school. So cutting your costs is a great way to relieve the pressure. So the only reason I could like focus on school and give it the time it needed to be successful when it wasn't making money was by not spending a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I would tell people like cut your costs. That's why I moved back home with my parents into their garage, by the way, when I started my businesses, because I wanted to just cut all my costs so I could focus on making something and giving it the time it needed to succeed. Yeah, so that's just my style. Some people might be different, but I can't do good work when I think when you're in emergency mode, you can't think long term. Like if you need to do something to survive, you're not thinking about the future. And that's just your body's natural instinct. And it's a smart instinct. But that's why you need to get yourself out of survival mode, whether it's a job or some clients or something. Just something to get you out of survival mode, then think about your business. Don't think about your business as the survival mode thing, because you'll make something that you'll learn to hate.
Good stuff. I love it. Yeah, no, massive golden gems. I think we're getting closer to the hour here as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Sam. I really enjoyed this a ton, and really appreciate your time as well. It was really good.
Thanks.